Well, welcome everyone to Student Dream TV, where we share money, investing, and startup tips for the Black collegian. And so in this crazy changing world that COVID has caused, you need guidance. And I know that sometimes we can't always find the best guidance around us. And so what I want to do for you today is bring to you all of my different advisors. And so today I have one of my best advisors, Chip Roper, who's been working in the business for probably longer than you've been alive. And so we're going to talk about what do we need to do so that we can survive and even thrive professionally and financially during this crisis. All right? All right. So welcome, Chip. I'm so glad that we get to be here with you today. I mean, I've been so fortunate to learn so much from you over the last few years. And so, yeah, I just want to start with saying thank you for taking your time to be here.
It's great to be here, Nana. You're the rock star. Let's just make that clear.
I appreciate you. But yeah, let's just jump right in. Maybe you can just introduce yourself to the Student Dream community.
Yeah, well, it's great to be with everybody. I live and work in New York City. I run an organization called VOCA. VOCA stands for vocation. So we want to help people discover a deep sense of personal meaning and focus in their work. That's what a vocation is. And so we do that in a lot of different ways. We do webinars, we do workshops, we do private coaching, and we do training. So that's a little bit about what I do now. I've had a long and strange career journey. I started out in business. I was actually a pastor for 20 years, and then I've been doing this for 6. I actually started doing a lot of this kind of work while I was in a clergy role. And one of the big things that's shaped me in this conversation is that in 2010, I tried to transition. I tried to do a career transition. I worked at it really, really diligently for 15 months, and I failed. I could not find another job. So I ended up staying where I was. But it just taught me a lot about job search and timing. And one of the things we talk about in this space is like, are you trying to change careers or not? And when you're starting out from college, you're just trying to get your first career, and that's fine.
Yeah,
a little different. But anyway, so School of Hard Knocks and a lot of other great resources that have come my way as we think about how do you find the next job for yourself. So I feel it. I've been there and done that.
You said you've been at this a long time. So given that you went through an experience of wanting to change careers, which essentially is basically starting from scratch.
Yes.
What advice would you have for the class of 2020 who, they're trying to begin their careers and they're faced in a reality where things aren't as, full as they would have wanted it to be?
Yeah, and some of that was what was going on for me in 2010. I was trying to change careers, and the career that I was trying to change into was an international nonprofit like development, and it was saturated with people who were available because a lot of them had been laid off, and as a result of 2008, 2009. So. There was a lot of people in front of me in line who had better resumes than I did. So I think that gets into this idea, like thinking about, what can you easily make the case that you're qualified to do? I think that in a tighter job market, that's what we call it. You need to be very, very clear about the value you can bring. One of the things that we have to do with clients all the time is, they come in, they say, I want a new job, or I need a new job. I got voluntold that I will be looking for a new job.
Yeah.
And, they come in, you say, well, what are you looking for in a new job, or what do you want to do? And they start to talk about what they want. And they say, well, I want to work from home, and I want, 3 weeks vacation, and, I need to have benefits. And great, we understand all that. But they're answering the question about what they want to get out of it. And instead of starting to think about how can they help a potential employer see what they're going to get out of it. And so one of the language we actually use, we actually use some startup language. We say like, think about what's your value proposition. You know, and you say, well, I'm in college, I haven't had a lot of jobs. Okay, but you volunteered, you've done certain things have come naturally to you, certain subjects in school came naturally to you.
Right.
Maybe the flip to virtual came really naturally to you. Maybe it didn't because you're much more of a people person. Certain things come naturally to you. You have energy, you have what we call flow. Um, these are the ways you make places better.
Hmm.
That's your value proposition. You need to be able to articulate how you make organizations, companies, campuses, whatever, groups, institutions, how do you make them better? Because if I'm a hiring manager, and that's the person that looks at your resume and decides whether or not you're going to get interviewed, and eventually will decide whether you get hired, that's the hiring manager. My problem isn't that you need benefits and that you want to work from home on Fridays. That is not my problem.
That's a good point. That's a really
In
good point.
fact, one of my friends he's a recruiter for a major investment firm, he says, I don't care about your sad story. Like, I
Wow.
don't care about, I mean, he's a nice guy and he'll listen to you. And on
Yeah.
some level,
But that's
does
the
care.
reality. And I think it's
But
important we have to keep it real. Like that's the reality.
the almost great thing about COVID is everybody's got a sad story, right? So it's like, you could just say, yeah, I had to work at Trader Joe's for 3 months because of this COVID thing, and nobody's going to care. It's not a black mark on your resume. It's, it took you 6 months to find a job, your first job. Nobody's going to care because everybody
Hmm.
knows that the whole world caught on fire. We're still trying to figure out what it's going to be. But back to the big idea is understanding and being really clear. And I think having a healthy confidence and being able to articulate, this is the value I typically bring,
Yeah.
and that's your value proposition. And the other thing that you want to get really good at is trying to understand what problem is this organization trying to solve with this hire?
Mm.
What problem is this organization trying to solve with this hire? Because you, as an employee, are a solution. You're a solution provider. Um, so
That's a good point.
that's
And
that's a different mindset. Oh, I need a job. Yeah, you do need a job. We know that. But for me to get excited and lobby my organization to bring you on and to all the things that costs in terms of time and money, I need to know that you're going to be a solution to my problem.
exactly. And what I like about that different perspective in terms of understanding what your skills are and that building confidence, understanding the value you bring, is that it forces you to do some self-examination and helps you to see that you already have assets.
Right.
I know what it's like to say to myself, well, I don't have the relationships to anybody in financial services or anybody at Google or Facebook. I don't have the coding skills, or I'm not an AI scientist or a robotics engineer. Oh my
You're not a
gosh.
robotics engineer? What?
I'm not.
You've been fooling me.
And I
I
think
just expected to see somebody bringing you your lunch here in a minute.
but no, one of the things I always say is that personal finances are personal, and it takes time figuring out your personality and who you are, your wirings, your gifts. But that can be very difficult and a real process of looking at some real insecurities. And so, what advice do you have for students who, they aren't confident and they're like, man, I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what value I bring. And because a lot of times people have been told that they don't have any value to bring, and
Right.
they may not be getting all the encouragement that I've gotten from Chip Roper.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, if you've been told you don't have any value to bring, you've been lied to.
Hmm.
You've been lied to. It's not true. Everybody has value to bring, and most of us have demonstrated certain skills and even hardwired competencies, even if we use them to deal with really, really hard situations.
Yeah.
Mess with family members or um, parents that weren't around, and we had to figure out how to survive. Like there's skills that are being demonstrated through all that navigation of difficulty in our lives. Um, we like to look at three things. I think when we have with our clients to help them understand kind of how to dial into the value they bring. So one thing is, what have you accomplished in your life? And you say, well, I haven't accomplished anything. Well, no, you probably accomplished something. I got to level 899 on my favorite game.
Right.
Which doesn't really sound like a marketable skill to an old person like me, but it really shows some things, right? It does show persistence. It shows problem-solving capability. There are certain types of, potentially anyway, somebody who's really good at specific kinds of games. There's probably some kind of response talents that they have for quick reactions and for reacting to visual data that not everybody may have. So there's actually skills being demonstrated there. I'm not saying that you go into your resume, your first interview, and brag about your score on your favorite game. I'm just saying that you asked me, and I think it's accomplishments. So like when we talk about accomplishments, and this is another one that might not be a great, I don't know, but it's kind of like, well, I planned amazing parties for my fraternity, and hundreds of people showed up. That's showing a skill right there. That's marketing. That's developing a network. I mean, it is, and it's saying it that way is that's you're saying it in the language of accomplishment. I planned and pulled off amazing parties for my fraternity where everybody wanted to come. So that's saying a ton about you. Or I volunteered at this program, and all the children that I work, many of the children I worked with, they learn new skills, and they always love to see me. So that's the first thing. You think about things you've actually accomplished. It doesn't matter if they're professional or not. They demonstrate some sort of underlying capacity or skill. A second thing that we do is we use assessments, and we have one in particular that we think objectively measures the kinds of things that you're going to be good at, the kind of tasks you're going to perform naturally and well, and the kinds of areas where you're going to struggle. And so that gives you objective data, and there may be different ways at different price points for you to do that. A third, and at least as important as all the others, way that you find out what are the kinds of things that you're good at, is you ask people who know you.
That's good.
One of my coaches walked me through an exercise, which we have since baked into all the kind of career navigation coaching and training that we do. He asked me, well, he said, go ask people who know you what you can do consistently well. How do you contribute? And I just sent a bunch of emails to people who knew me for a span of time. The longer the amount. So if you're a senior in college, go back to 14, 13. If your parents are alive and you spent a significant amount of time with them, ask them what kinds of things do you think I would do well. But ask people.
That's good. How many people would you say is a good amount to start with?
I think you want to get feedback from 10 people.
10 people. Okay.
And you usually need to ask twice as many as you want. So you got to ask 20 if you want 10.
Okay. That's really good. And so your advice to what is like kind of thinking about decision making, right? That's one of the things that has come to mind just in the midst of all this shift, right? Whenever something crazy happens, I think it's easy to retreat and not do anything, which we do not recommend. But I think it's important to do something. However, to do something with intention and with wisdom. And so what are some of the questions that you would say students need to be asking and answering right now? You've already mentioned some of them, but are there any others?
Well, first of all, I just want to agree with what you're saying. And VOCA just hosted a webinar last night. We had a senior in-house recruiter from a major investment company. And basically one of the big ideas he was saying is opportunity favors the prepared and the engaged. That's my summary of what he says. Opportunity favors the prepared and the engaged. So you want to be, so the answer is you want to be prepared, and you want to be engaged. And so in our job search guide, in our model, we think job search is a 3-step process, and it's a 3-step process whether you're graduating from college or whether you're 45 and just got laid off, or you're 65 and your business, the company that you work for, just went out of business and you don't know what to do. It doesn't matter. You have to do these 3 things. You have to prepare, you have to engage in a search, which can be like full-time work. Then you have to land the job and do it and get off to a good start. You have to, you have to launch into the job. So it's those three
Right.
ideas. You prepare, you search, and you land. And so back for things to do, some of it's prepare.
That's good.
And in this environment, we're telling people, start with your personal finances. If you're graduating from college in New York, but your family lives in DC, can you afford to live here without a job? And if you can't, maybe you have to think about, well, maybe I should look for a job in DC. And you say, well, that sucks. I like New York. I hear you, but I mean, this is reality. You just need to get through the next 2 years, and because that's what we think. This is going to be like a two-year craziness, and then we'll get on to a new normal. The world's never going to go back to being exactly the same. But we don't really know what not the same really means. But
Exactly.
I mean, you're not going to walk into a crowded restaurant and think about it the same.
Man. Wow.
So none of us are. So the world has changed.
Hmm.
So my point, though, is prepare your personal finances. Know what you have, know what you need. Have a plan B. Like, what would you do if, you just knew you weren't going to be making any money for 6 months? What would you do? And I think a lot of us are going to be trying to find family to shack up with, and we're going to more roommates, and we're just going to be figuring it out. But if you know those things in advance and you don't need to use those backup plans,
that's good.
You didn't lose anything. But if you know those things in advance and you do need them, then it's not a crisis when it hits the fan and you're like, there's nothing for me right now, or there's nothing for me right now here. And so, but I have a backup plan. So time to pull the trigger on that and go do it. So prepare is a big deal. And, emotional and spiritual preparation is important too. And, that could be somewhat different for all of us, but, generally, and this is always a challenge for people in job search. They think, I'll just look at the web job postings for an hour a day and then it's going to be fine. It's not going to be fine. It's like, you've got to get up early, get up at a time you would to go to work in whatever industry you're hoping to be in. Try and figure out ways to dress the way you would for the work you want to do, and work a day searching.
Wow.
One of my good friends has a job search roundtable group outside of Philly. They meet at 6:30 a.m. on Monday morning because you got to get out of bed.
That's
Go
good.
do something. Have a cup of coffee and a donut, and then they have to report into everybody what they've done for the last week, and it's accountability and it's momentum and that kind of thing. But the bottom line is, you got to prepare for this. You got to think about, how can I have some rhythms that are going to make this sustainable for me emotionally. You should always exercise. Keep up your exercise routine when you're in job search mode. You should try and find some friends that you can tell the details to. I've got this interview, I got that, and they're going to encourage you and support you and make sure you keep working at it. So there's the prep phase. Some of the prep is understanding that value prop, your personal value prop that we said. Then there's the search phase. And in terms of things to do in the search phase, probably the biggest single differentiator of people who do well at job search and those who struggle, it has to do with networking.
Networking.
It comes back to finding ways to get to know the people you need to know. And we typically would say that you probably don't know directly the people need to know, but the people know the people you need to know. Did you follow that?
I got it.
You probably don't know the people you need to know.
No, the people you need to know.
But the people know the people you need to know. So understanding, again, what you're looking for, what value you can bring, doing a lot of homework on the internet about different organizations and frankly, who's hiring. it's a combination of so, and this is a way to say, so anyway, that you do, I'll say more about each: homework and networking. um, when it comes to networking, the first phase of all this is not going out and asking people you know for a job. The first phase of all this is going out and asking people you know for information. It is not an imposition. It is not rude. It is not bothersome to ask people for their opinion. Most
Wow.
people love to tell you their opinion,
Right.
especially if there's a high probability that it could be helpful.
Right.
Asking people to help you find a job is threatening. That's scary. Like, you ask me, people do this stuff all the time. They send us their resume and they say, if you see anything, let us know. Well, they're making me do all the work,
Wow.
and they're asking me to find them a job, which is not my job. So it's anxiety producing for me, because I'm not sure I can really help them. But if they say, like, even this conversation, you said, Chip, tell me what you know about this. Well, I'm excited about this conversation because this is what I do all the time, and I'm
Yeah.
happy to share things that I think might be, that I hope are helpful. So the first phase of networking is asking people for information. It is not asking people for a job. And that's a huge
That's
thing
really good.
everybody has to learn. The second thing I was going to say is, well, how do you figure out who to talk to and that kind of thing? So what I would do now is I would be using like job openings on LinkedIn and companies like, or websites like Indeed. I would be using them to see who's hiring, to see
Okay.
what's out there. I would not be using them to just start clicking on links and sending my resume. I wouldn't do that. I would look and say, oh, well, there's whatever. And we already know Amazon's hiring. They are. So is
Yeah.
CVS. So is Trader Joe's. So is Walmart and their .com delivery side. There's probably anything that's in logistics, certain aspects of healthcare supply. They're not going away.
Right.
They're busy, and everybody has a hard time finding good people. So it's just,
That's a point. That is a good point.
so, but the idea is you go on these same places, these websites that are job search places, and you don't let them manage your job search or count on them to just send out your resume. You don't want to do that. You want to find out who's hiring. So maybe you find out, maybe you're a finance person, and you find out, well, Bank of America is laying people off, and Chase is flat, but Goldman and Morgan Stanley and Alliance Bernstein they're looking for entry-level people.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you have a fact. These three organizations are hiring. Now you got to find people there. And so that's your second step of kind of figuring out your networking targets, which sometimes we call strategic networking. So you got to find people or people who know people who know people who know the people who work at those places. And that's where LinkedIn comes in. Learning how to do more complex searches on LinkedIn is a key piece of this. Because you can search by company.
That's great. Thank you, Chip. Thank you
Hey,
for
thank
all this
you.
advice, man. This is
This was
awesome.
fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm learning a ton by talking to everybody, but this was, I learned a ton. I'm like, I can't wait
You're
to get to
awesome.
work. And so now, guys, the big thing is, what action are you going to take, right? A truth can never become your reality if you don't take action. And so Student Dream, we did not start just to get a whole bunch of ideas together, but we started so that you could actually turn your ideas into real tangible assets. And so my question to you right now are, what is one action? I mean, really, you got to be taking probably three, because there's plenty of different actions that you're going to take as a result of this conversation. And I would advise you to, the first action you should take is signing up for a Student Dream membership. So in the Student Dream membership, you're going to get access to this entire community. You'll have access to me, to Chip, to similar people like him, right? Who have been there, have done that in the professional world as investors and entrepreneurs, who can help guide you on a regular basis, as well as a peer accountability group where we are hitting our milestones. We're reaching out to those 50 people. We're having those information interviews, and we're pushing each other both in the short term and for the long term, because we want to succeed and help each other succeed, both personally, professionally, and financially. So for as little as $10 a month, you can get started today. So I advise you to click the link in the bio for that. But regardless, it's important for you to know that ideas are cheap, ideas are broke, and time is money. So let's get started today. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.